distancing is what we need, but we've got to be socially connected because we need each other. We're better together. No one's supposed to be an island. We're never meant to do this thing called life alone. And so today, even though we are very physically distant, I mean, I'm in Indiana and many of all of you are out there in California just navigating just challenges and adversity. I just want to live life together. And what I always say when we do these talks is my story, your story, it's the story. It really is. It's the story of people trying to figure out who we are, what we want to become, what we want to achieve, what are we going to do with our life, and as well as who am I just as a person? Where do I fit into this thing called life? And that's really all of our story. And so today we're just going to unpack and talk a lot about these things. And
Hey Nathan, just a minute. I think that your mic went muted. Okay,
boom,
that's
there.
better. Back
Okay.
it up.
Oh man. Yeah, yeah. Okay, that's all right.
You
We're
cut
just
out at today. We're just gonna talk about. You left us a surprise.
so oh my gosh. So today we're just gonna live life together. And I don't know if you heard this part, but I always say, your story, my story, it's the story. It's just the story of people trying to figure out our purpose, our worth, our value. And it's having to figure all this out while we're navigating life. Life is full of adversity. Life is full of challenges. Life is always going to throw us one challenge after one challenge. That's life. But here's the cool thing. This is what I've learned, guys, is pressure can do two things. It can bust pipes, but it also can create diamonds. Pressure is an area that, man, it can refine us if we have the right perspective. And so today, as we just open up and as we talk, literally my story, it's your story. I'm not coming at you. When I'm in person, and I hope one day maybe we get to come out there in person. But even though we're right now physically distant, we can be socially connected. I always say this, I'm not talking at you, I'm talking with you. And I may not have all these degrees behind my name, but this is what I have. It's been life experiences. It's when I was growing up and going through school, I battled broken families. My parents got divorced. I battled at 18 at a place when I was going to take my life. I battled suicidal ideologies. I got scars on my hands when I battled self-image and self-worth and self-harming. I've battled addictions. I've battled alcoholism. I've battled drug. I really, what I've battled was just life coming at me. And truthfully, I didn't trust people. And so I didn't allow people to kind of do this thing called life with me. So today we're just going to unpack some stuff, and I want to share a little of my story. But also really get to the point of the matter, because all of you that are on here that are watching through your screen right now, man, you're having to navigate some of the most challenging, probably difficult situations and things that you've ever had to. And we're all in this together. And that's what's so important. And I'll say it probably multiple times today, is that even though we need some physical distancing, and even though we're not together, we have to stay socially connected because we're better together. We're not an island. We need each other. And for me, a lot of my struggles, guys, it really kind of came, and it started from when I was in middle school and high school. My parents got divorced. They split up, they broke up, and it rocked me because I thought I thought I had a picture perfect family. My parents never fought or argued in front of me, and I was maybe just naive enough to think that I had a picture perfect family. And when my parents set me down in middle school, and my dad, who was my hero, my rock star, my role model, when he was ripped out of my life, it blindsided me because, see, my parents, they never fought in front of me. They always projected everything was perfect. They always projected that everything was picture perfect. I didn't know that really a lot of their knockdown fights and arguments, and even their struggle with addictions, a lot of that happened in their bedroom. And the bedroom was a place that I was never allowed to go. You see, I learned from them how to wear, and this term has a totally different meaning these days. Anytime before, well before we've been hit with the pandemic, I would always talk about this mask, but I'm not talking about the physical mask that we're wearing right now. I was talking about the social mask, the emotional mask, the mask that a lot of times we put on, the fake face, the fake smile. We walk the walk, we talk the talk. On the surface, everything can look picture perfect because we care about projecting a certain image. And I learned to wear that mask from my parents because I thought, we don't talk about our problems. We don't talk about our stuff. We don't talk about anything. We always would feel this pressure to fit in. And so I wore my mask really well, my emotional and social mask in middle school and high school, even though on the inside I was screaming. You see, when my parents got divorced, I put on this fake face and acted like it was all good. And even though on the inside I was screaming, on the outside I was smiling. And even though on the inside I was crying out, I was silent because I thought I had to project how a certain type of life and a certain type of person, I needed all of you to see me a certain way. It's called peer pressure. A lot of us battle with it. But the truth is what I've realized is this mask, the mask of the social and the emotional, when we don't let anybody in, man, I always paint the picture that if I was a young man growing up, if I could describe myself to you with a picture, on the surface, it would look like I was sitting in front of a beach with the most pristine, perfect water. The sky would be picture perfect. And on the surface, it would look picture perfect. But below the ocean waters in front of me was darkness and depths and predators and prey. And I was screaming and I was silent. But I wore my emotional and social mask really well. Because here's what happens, guys, for all of us, every one of you watching this, hear me on this. Every person breathing, we were meant to live our life in community. We were meant to live our life together. We want to feel connected. But what happens for some of us, if we're not careful, we have our trust broken. We have challenging situations that we've gone through, maybe traumatic experiences. And even though we long for connection, what happens is life begins to wear on us and we begin to feel the pressures of the culture and the pressures of hurts and wounds. And for some of us, even though we long to feel connected, we begin to get to this place of protection. We don't let anybody else in. We put on that emotional and that social mask, and we keep everybody at an arm's reach distance because we don't trust people. You see, when we sometimes go through traumatic situations or just challenging issues or whatever it may be, sometimes, a lot of times, we develop this attitude of protection. And so we long to feel like we're connected, but we are too scared to take off the social, the emotional mask and to open up. This is really where a lot of my pitfalls began. I'm today, since 2009, I'm 11 years free from suicidal thoughts. I'm 11 years free from self-injury. 11 years free from self-injury, self-harming, 11 years free from my substance abuse and my struggles. But, I had to learn the hard way. I've been able over the last several years to experience and see a lot of people and live life with a lot of people and talk a lot about these mental health and these just life issues that we're all facing. But it's because I learned really the hard way as I went through middle school and high school. And so what I hope to really kind of unpack with a lot of you guys today is just to give you some real tools, some valid applications that even though we're physically distant, we can stay socially connected. You see, today I have navigated this life the last 11 years with a lot of emotional and mental freedom and peace because I developed what I called the five. It's the five attitudes, the five behaviors that's changed my life. Every day I live by them. And it's a, it's transparency, it's accountability, it's hard work, it's make good choices, and it's value people. But it starts with transparency and accountability. See, we've got to have healthy habits, not only of the mind, but also of our heart. We've got to have healthy habits physically, like being punctual and being responsible and being able to self-regulate ourselves by executing tasks and getting stuff done. But all of that stuff, the things that we do, if we're not having healthy habits in the mind of like the importance of communication and accountability and transparency, we're going to find ourselves, yeah, we'll have some momentum, but man, we always find ourselves kind of crashing and falling because we don't have the community, the support, because we're really not meant to do this on our own. These aren't just catchphrases to me. You're not meant to be an island. I don't care who you are watching this. We need each other. We're better together. But I learned that the hard way. It was in my middle school as I went to high school, I decided that I wanted to fit in so bad. I needed my peers to see me a certain type of way. And so I walked away from good friends. When I went from a middle school to a high school, my middle school was about 350 students, and my high school was about 2,700 students. So my world got bigger. And all of you from middle school to high school to college to life, your world's going to keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. You're going to get more opportunities, more responsibilities. You're going to get later curfews. You're going to get your licenses. You're going to go and live on your own. You're going to have to get jobs and pay bills. You see, our circle of influence, no matter what, like it, love it, or leave it, it gets bigger and bigger as we grow up. And so the challenge for us as friends and as family and as just humanity is for us to build healthy, good systems and relationships for the people around us so they can help us and we can lean on them. We are not supposed to do this on our own. And so my biggest mistake that I made, that I always say, is that when I went from middle school to high school and my world got bigger, I walked away from good friends. I walked away from some people who really cared about me as a person. They valued me because they weren't the cool kids. I wanted to fit in. I had an idea what high school was going to look like. And so when I walked from my middle school to my high school, and boom, I went from 300 students in my school to 2,700 students, I walked away from a great support group because I thought they weren't going to give me the image because they weren't the popular or the cool people. The problem is what I've learned is this. And if I was there in person, I would look at every one of you or over the crowd and I would say this to you. You can tell me who you are, but I don't need you to tell me who you are. Who you surround yourself with will tell me who you are. And for some of you, man, you are compromising yourself and you're putting yourself around peer groups and circles that aren't speaking life into you. They're not encouraging you. They're not supporting you. And truthfully, they're maybe making choices that are hindering you from your future, for your dreams and for your goals. That was one of my biggest mistakes. I walked away from real friends and I began to compromise. And here's why, though. My hurts and my pains and my wounds. See, I said we wanted to live in community, but we go through things, so then we start to protect. We want connection, but we go through things, so then we start to develop protection. We don't let anybody in. And so I could walk away from some friends that knew me because my trust had been broken from my parents, and I had a hard time trusting anybody. And it was easy to have these surface relationships with everybody else. I could smile and wear the emotional and social mask and not let anybody in, but I could still have a form of kind of that was there, but I wasn't present. The problem with that is the whispers get loud. Sometimes you begin to think that you're not worth it, you don't have any value. Sometimes life begins to become difficult, and it's hard for you to have hope. It's hard for you to see a way out. And if you're not having healthy people that can continue to encourage you and to speak life to you and to support you, and sometimes just to be there to listen and not have anything to say, those whispers and those lies of doubts and hopelessness, they can get louder and louder. And man, sometimes you begin to believe the lie that you're not worth it or you have no purpose. And what's the point of even being here? That's really when I began to battle intent, like very specific suicidal ideologies. Very much did I begin to think that, as I began to see it around me, and I heard others that were, had been people who had believed the lie and actually had taken that step to end it. You begin to have the thought that maybe it was my way out too. And man, I've been all across the country, and I've hugged more people, and I've listened to more people than probably most, hundreds of thousands of people. And everywhere I go, I know there are people that are battling thoughts of maybe giving up's an option. Listen, from my mouth to your ears on this screen, don't you dare believe the lie that giving up, if you're navigating any of those feelings or those emotions, listen, it is not the way out. You cannot continue to isolate. And it doesn't make you strange or different because you're having these feelings or these thoughts or these whispers or these emotions. Many of us are navigating these feelings right now, but that's the thing. We're not supposed to do them alone. That's why human connection is so important. See, I know what it's like because in high school, I was there with those exact same thoughts too. It wasn't just thoughts of giving up that I battled with. It was also self-injury, self-harm. I've got scars on my hands when I battled some self-inflicting wounds. I didn't know how to communicate or express my anger or my sadness or my hurts, but I would afflict pain, and the pain though would never still make it go away. You know, the truth is, for some of us that maybe you've developed this habit of self-injury or self-harm, the truth is you honestly just want to feel connected, but man, you really struggle with it because you have to then punch fear in the face and take off your emotional and mental mask and talk about your stuff. And that's a pretty scary thing because if you begin to really be honest and open about your emotions and your feelings, what will they think about you? Maybe you begin to believe the lie that you're strange or you're different. No, man. Listen, the biggest lie that I ever believed, that I thought that I had to keep on my mask. See, I've learned through life the importance that it's this catch line, it's this it's these two words, beautifully broken. What I've really learned in life is that, man, everybody, some way, somehow, has stuff everywhere. I don't care who it is, from your friends to parents to teachers to strangers to people that you just are passing by. I've learned that every single person has something, some challenge, some issue. You are not the only person that feels this way. And what I want you to understand is that if you're on here and you may be battling some stuff, you are beautifully broken. Your scars aren't, your emotional scars or your wounds don't make you strange or different. It makes you unique. It's letting you know that, man, life hasn't been easy, but listen, life hasn't won. You are beautifully broken. I'm beautifully broken. Your friends are beautifully broken. In some way, somehow, long as we keep trusting and talking and communicating and understanding that we're not an island, we're going to continue to navigate this. The way that we don't allow the pressure to bust pipes is by talking. That social and emotional pressure, what happens is if we don't find healthy release points, it will bust the pipes. See, that's why for some of us, we battle the thoughts of wanting to give up, or we're self-injury, or we're self-harming. Or for me, I also turned to drugs and to alcohol. I turned to substance abuse because I was looking for anything to make the stuff that I was feeling go away. And they're all counterfeits. I always say drugs and alcohol is the biggest counterfeit substance there is, because it's a counterfeit connection. When I started giving into drugs and alcohol or any of those things that I did, guys, is just to let you know, as you kind of get into this with me, I started compromising, and I started really drinking and partying and getting involved with drugs because I wanted to fit in. I was looking for any group that would accept me, where I didn't have to really have depth of friendships and relationships. I could have surface friendships and relationships, and I could stay busy, but I never had to address some of the stuff that was on the inside. And drugs and alcohol, to me, is the number one counterfeit connection, because it kind of numbs the hurt and the pain. And I'm kind of social with people around me, but every morning I would wake up and the same struggles would be there. See, the truth is, and I just call it for like it is, the only, I won't say only, but the primary way to deal with a lot of the stuff that you're feeling, and I know it can be very fearful and challenging, is communication, transparency, talking about our stuff, sharing about our stuff, realizing that it's when we punch fear in the face. And I always say punch fear, like run at it. When I run at it and I began to open up to my friend about my struggle, or I began to open up to a counselor, or I just found the courage to share, man, I never felt more freedom, because transparency is the biggest weapon that we have to continue to combat life, because really we need each other. I learned it the hard way, though, guys. I didn't get this until I was, oh man, about 24 years old. Uh, I didn't graduate. I went from a straight A student in high school as a freshman. By the time I was a senior, I was getting straight Fs. I went from being a young man when I entered into high school that everyone knew that Nathan Harmon kid was going to be somebody who was going to try to make a difference. I was voted going to be one of the most successful people. But I was so afraid to open up and to let anybody in because of my past hurts and wounds. And as that pressure began to build, and I wanted to fit in because peer pressure is a real thing. By the time I was a senior, I developed all of these habits that were so self-destructive. And the number one thing that was that I just didn't trust, because opening up to people, man, And so that's where the thoughts of giving up and the self-injury and self-harming and the substance abuse, that's where a lot of that gap began to rise up. And at 23 years old, I found myself, in a really bad space. Just to be totally transparent, at 23, I was involved in a terrible accident, and I was still out there just trying to figure out who I was. And at 23, I should have been a senior graduating college, but I was, I was kind of going nowhere fast, spinning my tires in the mud. And I went to a party with friends, and then we went out because I was 23 to a bar, and just making terrible decisions. And long story short, I was involved in a terrible accident on July 17th, 2009. And my passenger, Priscilla, she lost her life. And it was in that moment at 23 that I really realized the choices and the decisions. It was not to dig deep into this area, but I just want you to know who I am, as because I promise you, what I've learned to navigate and where I'm at today, it doesn't matter your past or your background. It matters with what you're doing today and from every day moving forward. Um, I at uh, 23, when the accident happened, it was kind of a radical, crazy moment. But um, her family stepped in pretty quickly, and they forgave me, which is a whole nother story for another day. But they forgave me, and they asked me to do two things, and it was not to let their daughter Priscilla pass away for nothing, and try to make the world a better place. And choices have consequences, though, guys. And Indiana, the state of Indiana, didn't forgive me. And I found myself at 23 when I should have been a senior in college, graduating and pursuing purpose. I found myself charged and sentenced to 15 years in prison at 23. And I never would have thought in a million years that would have ever been my journey, because as a middle school student and as a freshman, I had the world by the palm of my hands. But choices and decisions and allowing the fear of the social and emotional mass not to open up, man, it can build and wrap you. And I just I went through a lot of that. But when I was in prison at 23 in 2009, uh, I decided to make a choice, a decision that, what I had been doing in the past wasn't working. Wearing the social and the emotional mask, it wasn't working. It wasn't getting me anywhere. I'm 23, and now I'm in prison for possibly 15 years. And now my choices haven't only affected me, but they had affected the people around me and Priscilla's family. And so there was a moment in that place that literally, this is what changed my life, guys, is I looked in the mirror and I stopped running from the person in the mirror, and I wrote the words, "Change the world," and I slapped and I put it on the bathroom mirror in that cell. And I realized that the mask, the social and the emotional mask that I was wearing, it was doing nothing but destroying my life. Nothing that I had done to that moment was working. And insanity is doing the same things and expecting a different result. And so it was at that time in 2009, about 11 years ago, that I ripped off the social and the emotional mask. And I said, I never is again going to suppress all these feelings and emotions, because at the end of the day, I had decided in my heart, those words change the world, that those words change the world, that I was going to do everything in my power to let anybody and everybody that I come in contact with from that day forward to know that their life speaks, their life screams, their life shouts, you have purpose. I was going to do everything in my power not to let this family who had forgiven me, and not to let Priscilla and that part of my story go for absolutely nothing. Like, my life in that moment became one purpose and one mission, was to believe that we as a culture, as a community, as people, no matter what life throws at us, that as long as there's breath in your lungs, as long as there's breath in my lungs, there is hope in our heart, and we're better together. But I had to take a stand, and I had to look at the person in the mirror. And for many of us, no matter where you are in life, maybe you're thriving in school right now, in college, you're college bound, or maybe you come from some not the greatest upbringing, and there's been adversity and so many hiccups and challenges and wounds and things that you've had to endure. No matter where we are on the spectrum, this is what I've learned, man, we are better together. And that mask and us caring what others think about us, it is the biggest lie. And so here's what's changed my life. Here's where I'm at today. And this is literally what I want to just begin to pour into. Hopefully, if you can take anything from anything that I've said, it's from this point going forward. That was a lot of background, but it's these 5 areas that's changed my life. And it's transparency, accountability, hard work, good choices, and valuing people. Those 5 mentalities, those 5 habits have changed everything. It's created a healthy space for my mental health. It's created a healthy work ethic for my character and my choices and the things that I do, because our choices matter. But it started with transparency, which meant I had to take off the social and the emotional mask. And I had to look in the mirror, and I had to get real with myself and stop sugarcoating and stop suppressing some of the things that I had. I had to face some of the wounds that I had and not be afraid of bringing them to the surface. And so for me, the reason why, as I had some time in prison to reflect, um, my mom said, Nathan, you didn't go to prison, you went to college. She always says it that way, that Nathan, you went to you were in college, like self-finding yourself and teaching yourself. And I didn't do 11 years. I got released. I mean, I didn't do 15 years. I got released 11 years early. What happened is I've been home since 2013, and that's when I started going to high schools and colleges and speaking and sharing and trying to let anybody and everybody that I can know you have purpose, you have worth, no matter what it is. Keep going, don't slow down. And this thing just kind of went crazy. But it was there in 2009 that I have to begin to really face the person in the mirror and face those words, change the world. And what that meant is, see, a lot of us guys, if I'm honest, the reason why you stay so busy, the reason why you don't, maybe you're battling substance abuse, or maybe, you keep the mask on and you're battling your own stuff, is, see, if I slowed down and had taken a moment to think, had taken a moment to just reflect, a lot of those issues could have came to the surface where I could have began to then maybe address them. But I was so afraid to address them, and I was afraid and I was scared. And so I would just be going everywhere and staying so busy. So I never had a moment just to look in the mirror. And this is the key that I found out about transparency with friends and communities and parents and grandparents and counselors and psychologists, whatever it is, those people that you can find the courage to take off your mask. You see, here's the thing about transparency, guys. And this is what I mean when I say transparency. I'm talking to like see-through. Transparency is see-through. It's kind of clear that there's no hiding. I come from a little bit of an older school generation where they had the it wasn't always projectors or PowerPoints or iPads. They literally would have the big light thing on the wall, and you would lay the transparency over top of the light thing, and then you would see it, and you could like put like the exoskeleton and then the muscles and these transparents, like I don't know. It's just where it's when I think of the word transparency, I think of like layering those that when I was in school, those light projectors. But here's the thing about transparency. It's see-through. And when I found the courage to begin to open up with people, counselors and friends, I was incarcerated at the time, but there were some people that I could see that were serious about trying to change their life too. And I found the courage to start taking off my emotional mask and be transparent with them. And here's the thing. You see, transparency and talking to people about your stuff, it's not that necessarily they're going to have some perfect answer full of wisdom and counsel and have the just the picture perfect answer for you. But here's the thing about transparency, it's this. You're not just talking to them. You're beginning to talk to them and to yourself. You're self-talking about your issues and your challenges. You see, I have such confidence in you watching this that you are fully capable of navigating this thing called life with people, but also with yourself. And when we begin to identify a problem, we are problem solvers. You like it, love it, or leave it, watching this, you have the ability to solve problems. You have such ingenuity. The human race, humanity, we are people that, man, we are so resilient. But what I've learned is the way that we begin to develop resiliency is that we've got to begin to face some challenges. And so when I was talking to my people and my friends next to me, I wasn't just talking to them, but I was also talking to myself. And deep in my psyche and in my soul and in my heart, I was beginning to acknowledge the areas that I had some stuff that I needed to deal with. It was coming to the surface. You see, transparency, it begins to bring these things where we can begin to address them. And then that led me into accountability. See, accountability, it's not for me. I would hear the word accountability and I would always think that Accountability is just a word where someone's going to get me in trouble, like a boss is watching over my shoulder, or a teacher, or I'm being held accountable and there's accountability. And so, like, someone's waiting to get you in trouble. That's how I always thought of accountability. But that's not it at all. You see, accountability, it's when you begin to allow people, friends, counselors, teachers, mentors to be there and to support you and to encourage you. You see, accountability is the ability for people to continue to be these sounding blocks for you. They don't have to have always the perfect answer, because I believe that you have such ingenuity that if you start talking about stuff with people and they're there just supporting you in community. See, that transparent moment and that accountability when people are surrounding you, that's where resiliency is born. Resiliency is birthed, I believe, in community. And that's why we need each other. Not because I care that I've got flaws and that I care about your opinions of me anymore. See, as I started talking to my friends and counselors and teachers about my stuff, you know what happens? They began to have the courage to realize, man, this dude is being real. He's being raw. He's opening up. Man, he's sharing stuff that honestly that like I'm struggling with too. And so my vulnerability and my transparency, it began to also empower and encourage the people around me where they could find the courage to maybe take off their social and emotional mask, for them to begin to face some of their stuff. You see, accountability and transparency, we're better together. If I was with each one of you right now where you're watching this, I would do this cool thing about accountability. And here's why it's so important to your journey going forward. Even if you're doing great right now, guys, and you're off to college to be doctors and teachers, and even if you're on your way right now and you've got a plan and a 5-year plan and a 10-year plan, don't get it twisted, man. You're not an island. You can go so far, but really we need each other. And you're going to get to a place where you're going to realize that relationships and friendships and community is paramount to furthering your ability to thrive to your full potential. But this is what I've learned about the importance of accountability and transparency. And when I say that, I'm talking about healthy habits, mental health, mental awareness, and mental healthy habits of the mind, of the importance of connection and people. You see, a lot of us watching this, there's probably areas in your life, maybe it's your attitude, your character, maybe it's more destructive of literally thoughts of wanting to give up, or maybe it's a substance abuse or anger, whatever your stuff is, right? But I would say every single one of us have had areas in our life that we want to change. We know we need to change. We know we should change. But you know what happens? Most of us, nothing ever changes. Why? Because change is super, super uncomfortable. Nobody wakes up and says, today I want to be uncomfortable. No. A lot of times, even though there's areas and attitudes and behaviors and decisions and thought processes that we know, you know, deep in your heart, you need to change, you should change, you want to change. We don't change though, because man, what we've always been is comfortable. What we've always been is that's what we've always known. And so we go back to our default setting. But this is what's powerful about accountability. You see, when you have people that you're opening up to and you're talking to and you're being truthful to, and they begin to join arms with you and they begin to become an anchor in your life. And so when you want to run back to being who you've always been because it's comfortable, they hold you there. They're not there to get you in trouble. They're not there to control you. They're there to listen, to support you, and to hold you. They can't make you change, and they can't force you to go back to being who they are, that you used to be. But they can hold you like an anchor, and just support you and love you. And as that fear subsides of you stepping out into this unknown and opening up and taking off the emotional or the social or the mask that you're wearing, that projection, they can't change you, but they can hold you until that fear comes. See, this is what I've learned about fear. This is what I've learned about our emotions. It's like clouds in the sky, sunny and cloudy. They come and they go. It's like mountains and valleys. There's ups and there's downs. It's like waves in the ocean, a wave after wave. It comes and it goes. What I've learned that's changed my life is that emotions can lie to us. Emotions, though, come and they go. And we can't allow our feelings, even though the feeling can be valid in the moment, it doesn't mean it's based in facts. It doesn't mean that emotion is always based in reality. It could just be an emotional response to this fear or to this pain, whatever it is. And so I've had to retrain my mind, not allowing my emotions to dictate my choices solely, but a proper balance. Because I know, just like the clouds or the mountains and the valleys and the waves, those emotions will come and they go. And so when I'm taking off my mask and I'm trusting the people around me and I'm allowing them to be an anchor and they're holding me accountable, they're just keeping me still so I don't run back until the emotion comes and it goes and then I can walk forward. This was two areas of transparency and accountability that don't change everything. And and those are areas that I feel today's culture right now we're struggling with. And it's why mental health and some of the pressures we're feeling, it's at these all-time highs, is because, man, we are afraid to be real with each other because we think we have to perform and we think we're in competition and we think that it's all about, I've learned, guys, man, that's all. It means nothing. It really doesn't. Like, what matters is you knowing that we're all beautifully broken. We've all got stuff and talking about our stuff, but you've got to make sure that you're using your resources. And the number one resource you're ever going to have in your life is each other. And so transparency and accountability has been a huge part of my journey. It's the reason why I'm at where I'm at today and I've had the opportunities that I'm getting to do. But it also means that there's the next 3 and 4 of my 5: transparency, accountability, but there's also then the hard work and the good choices. You've also got to be willing to apply yourself. Hard work works. Honestly, guys, in today's culture, a lot of us will talk about it, but nobody wants to apply themselves. We if we're not careful, we've became a very lazy culture of people that it's so easy to watch everybody else doing things and we get an idea, but we just sit back and we don't apply ourselves. What I've learned is hard work works. Make good choices, good things happen. Man, write that dream down, write that goal down, write that thing that you want to change in your life. Literally in my life right now, guys, um, when I was in prison, I had the words change the world on my mirror. When I was at home, I had the words change the world on my mirror at home. Now, me and my wife and my kids, we live full time in an RV. We travel the country. We live, we're dedicated to one thing, and that is giving hope and purpose. And even in our RV that we travel all across the country in, I have those exact same words, change the world, still in my bathroom in our RV. And and so um what I'm saying is that you've got to be willing to also take responsibility and apply yourself. You can be anything you want to be, you can achieve anything you want to achieve, but you're going to have to work hard. And the cool thing about this is it doesn't matter where you come from, what you have or you don't have. Honestly, most people talk about it, but nobody wants to apply themselves. And so, like for me, I just decided, listen, I'm going to apply myself every day. I got released 11 years early because doors opened and I was working hard on my character and my attitude. And I was just sick and tired of being sick and tired. And so in 2013, when I came home, I just started really working so hard at trying to help anybody and everybody that I could and just loving on people. And I didn't care what people thought about the past or any of those things, because at the end of the day, one good choice leads to two good choices, to three good choices. And I had to vision in my heart that I really believe that we can change the world. And at the end of the day, hard work works. And if you work hard, it's whatever you put your time and your focus into, it's going to thrive. And that brings me into the last one, it's transparency, accountability, hard work, good choices. But then there's this crazy, it's the last one, but it's probably the most important, and it's valuing people, because what you give away, you get to keep. And here's how I break that down. Growing up, I had a lot of people in middle school and high school when I was struggling saying, Nathan, don't give up. Don't believe a lie. You're not a failure. They would try to encourage me. I'm sure some of you've had people when you're having a rough day, they try to encourage you. They try to pour into you. They tell you you're loved, you have worth, you have value. But you would go home and you would look in the mirror and you didn't feel that way. You didn't feel like you had worth and you had value. And so even though people were encouraging you, you still didn't have it inside of you. And so it was almost like that. Yeah, I hear you, but I don't feel that way. You know what changed my life is when I learned what I give away, I get to keep. So even in the midst of all of my struggle, when I had slapped those words on the wall in that cell, and I began to take off my social and my emotional mask, and I began to be super uncomfortable and allow people to kind of be a part of my story. And I opened up and I decided to take ownership of my actions, my character, my attitude, my punctuation, my self-regulation. That's a big one for you guys right now. A lot of times we're learning on Zoom, and a lot of things that are digital and virtual. This is a time for you to have to recognize that character matters, punctuation and self-regulation. You can be super gifted in what you're gifted at, but if your character doesn't match that, and I mean that is this, that some of you've got to continue to apply yourself, because life's fast and it's quick. And so for me, I started applying myself and working hard, and allowing people to tell me hard truths about myself and not getting offended, right? Um, but came to this place where I really had to figure out how to have real self-worth and real self-value. And that only comes from, truthfully, we're a place that I call what you give away, you get to keep, valuing others. Because even though people told me how special and don't give up, Nathan, you're loved, I didn't feel that way. But when I found the courage, even when I was struggling, to go out and try to love other people and try to encourage other people and to serve in community service and get involved in whatever I could get involved in and just help people, you know what would happen is I was empty. I felt like I was worthless and hopeless, and I had no sense of self-value. And people try to tell me that I was, but I didn't feel it. But when I started actually helping people, even though I was struggling, when I started, giving away and pouring out like care and just service and just being an ear to listen to somebody else struggling, you know what would happen is this. I would walk away from the conversation. I would walk away from that experience, that encounter, and I knew that I just added value to their life. My experiences began to hit me deep on a personal level, that when people told me I was important, it didn't really hit me this way because didn't feel it. But when I put my hands and my heart and my life to just caring and actually listening and being involved with community, it subconsciously did something deep in my soul that began to let me know that I had worth and value, because I couldn't deny the experience that was just created in the encounter of helping somebody. I hope someone's catching that. What you give away, you get to keep. And in this time right now, guys, with us going through and having to navigate some of the biggest challenges and the biggest storms and uncertainties, listen to me. I want every one of you watching this to know, man, you are right where you need to be. You have purpose, you have hope, but you've got to be intentional about community, even though we can't be physically necessarily connected. We've all got phones. We've all got computers. Most of us have social medias. Most of us have a way that you need to stay connected to people. You need to write down a dream and a goal and something in front of you and say, every day, I want to make one more choice to bring that closer and not push it farther away. Every day, I'm going to keep my wound, my hurt, my struggle, not bury it, but I'm going to keep it on the surface. And I'm going to continue to let the light and to let the air. That's how wounds heal, guys, right? A lot of times we have these wounds and we have these heals. Yes, you have to wrap them, and yes, you have to bandage them. But my sister's a nurse, and when my daughter had gotten some stitches because she fell, she said, make sure you're taking the Band-Aid and the bandage off and letting the sunlight and letting the air affect it, keep it on the surface. That's the same thing that happens for us, guys. Our social and our emotional struggles and issues that we have, we've got to be willing to keep it at the surface, let the sun and the light hit it, let community, because the truth is, when you begin to look around, you're going to realize that people, they're just as beautifully broken as you are. They've got stuff too. But we can't continue to bury our head in the sand. Guys, I know that right now this wasn't the way you probably expected the 2020-2021 school year to go, but here's where we are. It's here, we can't change it. But what's the perspective? What are we gonna do with it? You see, I've learned to become a cup half full, not a cup half empty. I mean, I'm serious. It may sound super cliche, but man, I literally look at every area of my life now and say, listen, this isn't the bad, but where can I find the good? Because whatever I put my time, my effort, and my energy into, what I feed grows, and what I starve dies. And so if I could now look at my chances, for me personally, this whole time, it's changed my life dramatically. We would be in person, literally hundreds of schools from coast to coast all over. But now things are different. But what I'm getting to do is I'm being able to use this time with my wife and my kids and to be more present in their life, but still getting to impact people. See, every area, there's always perspective. And if we can learn to find that area and to use it for our good, all pressure, all fire has a reaction. If we don't face it, it can cause pipes to bust. But if we face it, it can refine us and create diamonds in the rough. And so, guys, I just want all of you on here to know, and I want to answer questions. And I know this question's been coming along. I haven't been able to see the bottom of my screen, so I'm not for sure. But listen to me, guys. I'm just a dude out here that lives in Indiana. My name's Nathan Harmon. I started an organization called Your Life Speaks. And I started it and called it Your Life Speaks because when I came home, there was a lot of people that had kind of given up. They thought, Nathan, it's only a matter of time before you go back to being an idiot. But I didn't get offended. They had a right to feel that way. So I decided that I was going to make so many good choices and decisions that I would let my life speak, scream, and shout. And that every single one of you watching this, man, you were born for purpose. Your destiny is in your hands. Literally, you watching this video, you were meant to leave your fingerprints, your fingerprints, your unique fingerprints on history. You were meant to make a difference, not only for yourself, but the people around you. Guys, listen to me. You're not alone in this. We're in this together. And truthfully, if I was there in person, I would encourage you. We have a bunch of our social medias, our Instagram and our Facebook, but our Instagram's the main one. It's called Your Life Speaks. As much as we can, we're always posting positive content, positive information, positive things. And we would encourage you to let that just be something else. I know most of you are on social media, and I know it can be a distraction. And I know, man, there have a lot of wasted time in there, but I know it's not going anywhere. So me and my team, we have tons of YouTube videos and content because I just believe that every one of you watching this, you're meant to leave your fingerprints on history, but we're better together. Transparency, accountability, hard work, good choices, and valuing people. Those 5 have changed my life. And so be encouraged, but you got to find the courage to take off your mask. You got to talk about your stuff. If you know somebody who's struggling, don't wait for them to talk to you about it. Talk to them first about it. I don't care if it gets a little uncomfortable. If you know someone who's battling some mental health issues and that you know that they're battling, be intentional. Go love on them. Shoot them a text. Let them know. You never know who is struggling or who is wrestling. What I do know is there's never a wrong time to do what's right. There's never a wrong time to love on people. And we as a culture, we as humanity, we as people, even here in the United States, we're going to navigate through this, guys. Your generation, when we look back, you're going to be a generation of people that literally moved the needle of humanity in a powerful, profound way, because you guys have went through some things that none of us had to ever navigate in school in some of our fundamental years. And I just believe that some of you, most of you, if you just face it head on, man, we're going to come out even more refined and even more well equipped for that next generation. So I love you guys. And if there's some questions or whatever there is, I can move this a little bit better so maybe I can see the bottom. I haven't been able to see that. Let me see here.
Hey. All
Hey.
right. Okay, so we're going to move into the question and answer portion. I don't know if you double click on the bottom, can you see the Q&A and bring up those questions, or I can read them to you?
Oh, I can see it. Boom, right there. Okay.
So you can kind of scroll through. They can either put something in the Q&A, which then gets answered for anyone who's looking at the Q&A, or there's also, I haven't gotten any questions in the chat, but for those of you listening, you can put it in either portion. So
Yeah, so I have some questions as in what is the education requirements for this career? Uh what and so for me on that one would be how do I get back? Boom, and close that. Honestly, guys, what's the education requirements to be a communicator, to be a speaker? I guess is just to find a purpose, find a passion, to believe in it. I've been doing some online classes and schooling, but really if to be a communicator, to be a speaker, you just gotta love people, and you've got to be knowing this. What you've been through is what you speak to. And so I would just continue to take public speaking and speech and writing, and world history, there's all these things, and just have a passion for it. That's there. I don't know if there is like I'm sure there is a formal, but for me, it was just that I knew there was a calling on my life and I was going after it. Another question that I have is, what would you tell your younger self? That's a really good one. If I could talk to my younger self, I would tell my younger self, don't overreact in the moment. Don't allow your emotions to control your actions, because the truth is, when we're in high school or wherever we are in life, when you're in the now, it's hard to see 5 years, 10 years. It's sometimes hard to see next week. But what I've learned is, man, life goes fast. And so if we will just, what I always say is aim small, miss small. And what I mean by that, if I will just really, if I could go back to my younger self and say, listen, continue to work hard, continue to make the right choices. There's never a wrong time to do what's right. Surround yourself with people who have the same missions and dreams, because who you surround yourself with really is they're going to affect you. And then it's just, don't care what others think about you. Be real, be genuine, be your authentic self, and realize that we're better together and that we've all got stuff. There's no one that's picture perfect out there. And so I would just tell them to breathe and to take it one day at a time and to know that you'll turn around soon and you're going to be in a whole nother chapter. So make sure you're writing that chapter you're in right now with all of your passion, with all of your focus, but also with just the rest and peace knowing that if you work and you're intentional on community, and if you work and if you're intentional on applying yourself and being accountable and not making excuses, there's only one thing that can happen, and it's you're going to thrive. So that was what I would tell my younger self. Another question I have gotten was it hard to overcome the addiction? Uh, you know, I'm 11 years sober now, and you couldn't get me to go back to touch any of it. I feel like it's a counterfeit connection. I learned, the hard way. But how I really combated it was literally transparency and accountability. Like I was so sick and tired of being sick and tired. And I realized that it was never giving me what I wanted it to give because I would wake up and it'd be whatever the substance it was gone. And I'm out there trying to find that new, the next, addiction, the next crave, the next use. I realized that, man, it was literally just trying to keep and appease my surface desire for substance like connection somehow. So I just literally was super, 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 super intentional of being transparent and accountable, like brutally honest with those people. Because truthfully, the reason why some of us we want to get sober or we want to battle your addiction, and you know this, right? And you start and then maybe you mess up and then you don't want to talk to a sponsor or you don't want to talk to a counselor or a parent or a friend because now you're embarrassed or what are they going to say? Who cares? You're not trying to get sober for them anyways. You're not trying to break your addiction for them anyways. It has nothing to do about them. It has everything to do about you. And so listen, when you get to that mindset that, listen, I'm going to keep working on this and it may take me 6 months, a year, 3 years, it may take me it may take me 2 months to really break this habit, these desires. But here's what's happening is I'm going to keep talking about it so I don't have the lies and the deceptions and all. I can know, just talk about it. You're not doing it for them anyways. You're doing it for you. And the more you talk about it, you're leaving that pressure off. So that's what I would say to that. I got a bunch of questions. What was the advice? What are the biggest priorities in life? I also have, what's your biggest takeaway from sharing your story? Nowadays, what keeps you going? What was your motivation when you had no motivation? Okay, those are some good ones. So I think, what have I learned about sharing my story? What I've learned is, man, there's so many people just like me that wear the social and the emotional mask. So many of us, today they have those same. There's just people out there hurting, and for so long I thought I was the only one. And so as I began to find the boldness to take off my mask, it's been a tool that's helped so many other people take off their social and their emotional mask. I always want to say, this has been the wildest moment for me is the whole where we're at with the pandemic and the face coverings, because I always talk about taking off your mask, take off, you can't keep wearing the mask, the fake face, the fake smiles. But so now I'm with the social mask and the emotional mask, right? So, but that's been my biggest takeaway is that there's so many people that are just like you. And if you find the courage to talk about it, you're going to find a lot of people that relate to you that can build that strong bond. So that's that question. Some more good questions. When you were at your lowest point in your struggle, where was there anyone that really helped you get back on your feet? When I was at my lowest point in my struggle, I was it would have been after the wreck, and I was coming to terms with my accident, and my choices now affected another family. And uh, my mom was really there. There was also another guy that I had met while incarcerated named Petey. This awesome black man that was like 75, and he was there for something pretty petty. But man, he wrapped his arms around me and just poured into me. And I learned that the older generation has so much to teach the younger generation, and that's something to all my students watching this. You don't realize, wisdom is trying for you to, let me say it this way. Insanity is for you to keep banging your head on the wall and think it's going to change. I've learned, man, if I allow my mentors, counselors, people, parents, elders that's been through life, if I will allow them to speak into my life, I don't need to recreate the wheel. And we struggle in this generation with allowing people to really influence us in good ways because we feel like they're just trying to hold us back or, get us in trouble. But for me, I've learned that those people, if I would just listen, why do I need to make the same mistakes 10 times over if I can let someone that's already made that mistake help me? And that's something that this culture needs, to allow the older generation to help them kind of navigate this thing called life. We're a big tribe, we're a big family, we're a big community, we're humanity. Um, Another question that I got: where did I find my motivation when I didn't have any motivation? It was, truthfully, that goes into the other question of that goes to also where did I find strength from when I was at my lowest point. My faith has played a part in that journey. My relationship, that's just part of my story. I won't get into that, but that's just to be, if it's an honest question. But also is when I wrote the words on the wall, "Change the world." I looked at those words every single day, and I decided, even though I didn't feel the greatest, life isn't about feelings. It's a part of it, but feelings don't have to regulate me. Feelings aren't always based in reality. And I can prove that. I bet some of you guys, there's been times in your life that you felt like somebody was talking about you, or you thought somebody was, had this to say about you or that to say about you, and you felt it. And then you come to find out that you were totally mistaken and it wasn't based in reality and that wasn't the facts, or somebody had texted you and you read it a certain type of way. And man, through that text, you were giving it the voice and the attitude, and you were reading it the way that you thought they were saying it. And then you come to find out that you just put a whole lot of you into that. I know someone knows what I'm talking about. See, emotions, even though you're feeling it, it doesn't mean it's always based in reality. And so I've really learned that even when I'm on my lowest or I don't feel it, I don't live my life by feelings. I live my life by knowing that make good choices, good things happen. What you give away, you get to keep. Hard work works. So for me, when I was at my lowest, I looked at those words, "change the world." The same exact words that are in my RV where we live now, those exact same words as we're doing what we're doing and just trying to make a difference and leave our fingerprints on history. I had a lot of lows in that journey, but every day I would see those words and I said, no matter how I'm feeling today, I'm going to make choices that brings that dream closer and not push it farther away. So I would encourage all of you on here to write something down. Be brutally honest. What's something that you need to change about your character, your behavior, one of your pains, your hurts, your wounds, your fears. But also, what's an objective and a goal that you want to achieve and thrive? You've got to have some vision. Every one of you watching this, you may not have the perfect plan laid out what you want to do, but if you're in high school or if you're in school, you need to have some goals, some dreams, some ideas, some vision, and start working towards it. And that will continue to keep you going. So let me see if there's some other good questions on here. Great questions. What do I enjoy the most about what I do as a speaker? Let me see. If I wasn't doing this career, what would you be doing instead? If you had a chance to start over, what would you change? Was it hard to trust people? That's a really good one. What are some of the everyday challenges you face? if I wasn't doing this, I don't know what I would be doing. I don't know. I couldn't. I love people, and there's nothing greater than to see people catch it with a glimpse in their eye. It's a little harder on virtual, but man, when I'm with people and you see them shifting and you see them even maybe crying because they know that they're not alone, and they're finding the courage to take off their social and emotional mask. That's it's the greatest thing in life, knowing that you're adding value to somebody and letting others know that they're not alone. Um, some of the everyday struggles that I face is still just constantly knowing that this thing's a journey. And the stuff that I'm telling you, I'm always telling myself too. I don't operate off feelings. I don't operate off how I feel, but I operate off continuing to apply myself, and journaling, and having a direction, and having a path that I'm after. But it's the same problems. It's the same stuff, guys. I battle with self-image and self-worth and self-value. I battle with, as I've gotten older, financially, and bills, and being a father, and being a husband. And I had a team, and I have a team around me that we've all had to navigate through this challenging time. When this all happened in March, I had 114, I believe, maybe 108, but it's one of the I had 108, we'll say 108 speaking engagements, March, April to May of this last spring, on the calendar, go, go, go. And then within 72 hours, it was all wiped away because of the pandemic. And so I had to look in the mirror, and rally my team, and we had to be thoughtful of how do we pivot, how do we continue to make good choices, and how do we impact people. And so for us, I mean, we created video series. We knew that we are going to do more virtual stuff. You know, it's called resiliency. That at the end of the day, no matter what life brings us, I can't, or I don't know how, doesn't come out of my mouth. I can, I must, I will. I'm going to figure it out. I may not know how, but that is my excuse why I'm not going to know how in the future. See, I've learned to look at the world half the cup half full, and not half empty. Um, some more good questions here. What is a saying you grew up with? Uh, Love that. There's always someone that will come across in your life to pour into you just as you see the sign. Allow them to go along the way. How have you coped with all this now that we're all quarantined? How do you feel with your life right? How do you feel your life right now? What's hard in your life? Would you change your past? Um, I'll say this: would I change my past? If I could go back and make choices where Priscilla's family and Priscilla, absolutely that one, but I can't. Um, but I think, of course, there would be things that I wish I would have had eyes to see, and more, maybe, self-awareness to address differently, but I can't. And so now it's, what do I do moving forward? I don't try to get stuck in my past, because I feel like we can get stuck in our past, and that just continues to take up emotion, time, and space of what you're doing now and moving forward, because your time's valuable. You never get your time back. It's one of the most valuable commodities you as a person will ever have, is your time and your focus. And so don't waste your time, don't waste your focus, because you never get last hour back or yesterday back. And so it's nothing wrong with reflecting on your past, but if you find yourself just beating yourself up or living in the past, that's not doing anything for your future or for the now. And so you can identify it, you can acknowledge it, you can be self-aware to know, maybe there's some things you need to fix from your past, but you can't change it. But what are you going to do with that experience moving forward? And so for me, that's been a huge tool for me. How have I been navigating the quarantine is just staying socially connected, even though we're physically distant. I working on personal refining my skills when it comes to learning technology more, or writing, or just constantly trying to better myself some way, somehow. Um, what's the hardest, toughest part about doing this? Do you have, okay. What's the toughest part of doing this? Talking with others about their problems. Is there ever a time when you need to take a break? I feel like we all can burn out. Yes, that's a real thing. Um, but something that for me, going back just to my journey with just my faith and my belief in God, it's always been, um, I don't give anybody my well. You only get my overflow. I stay connected to spiritually with and into my community of people, that I don't give you my overflow. I mean, I don't give you my well. I don't give you those things that helps keeps my fire and my passion going. I give people my overflow, the stuff that's running over the well, because I just believe if we keep working on, transparency and accountability and the five that's helped govern my life, there's always overflow. And so I can just keep pouring that stuff out and love it on people. But sometimes, me and my wife and my kids, we will take a secluded time just to get away and to reflect and recenter. So yeah. Is there any other ones really? I just wanted you guys to know, if I wasn't doing this career, what would I be doing instead? Well, I would love to have been a marine biologist. That's what I wanted to do in high school. I love animals. I love traveling. I love the ocean. Even though I don't really like sharks, but I have like a fear, it's kind of. But I feel like if I was underwater and I could see them, it would be a lot better. It's just when I can't see them, right? You never know what's there. But um, that's probably what I would maybe be doing, something like that. And if maybe in like the super other world, it would have been like, I love playing soccer. That was one of my passions, was playing soccer. I was just lazy and I gave up on it. And I was, I would be a regret. I used to love soccer. So, um, yeah, that's guys, it's been really awesome. Is there any other specific questions on the panel that or anything that I just, how old's my daughter? She's 4. What, man, so many, so many. So what's my profession aside from public speaking? This is it, guys. This is what I do, all the time. Anywhere and every, I always say anywhere and everywhere they let me go with my man bun, I'll go and I'll share and I'll speak and just continue to try to leave people as after I've encountered and hopefully inspired with hope. And if you're on here and you're struggling, don't keep struggling. Talk about it. You're not alone in it, for sure. So, Aaron, is there anything else?
I'm just kind of going through the chat as well and just seeing all their questions. So that was just, this Q&A section was just kind of see what questions they have and spend some extra time with you, and appreciate you staying on to talk about that. So
Yeah.
thank you.
Well, it's been an honor. I just I hope that, as many as that we can be inspired and impacted by this. Just I appreciate you guys letting me live life with you guys. I know time's a valuable asset and tool, and I hope people that were here were able to pull some things away. Any question that you have specifically?
I don't have any that come to mind. You've answered a lot of them through the thing, so that's good. I thank you for that. I have a one that keeps popping up. Um, yeah, no, it went away. Anyway, so if you look through there, but people are now saying, thank you for sharing. So I thank you for your time. And I put in the chat, so if anybody, you say talking about it is always something that helps, but sometimes I feel like our students are they don't have anyone to talk to, or they don't have anybody that they want to share their real, because they're either ashamed of something or embarrassed, or so it's hard. find, those people that you can trust. So I put in the chat, that they could always reach out to their counselors. But do you have anyone that you recommend if they don't even want to reach out to, our school or counselors? Is there anyone that anonymously, I know there's like suicide hotline and stuff like that, but just to give advice, that's kind of anonymous. Do you know of any resources for that? Your mic's off again. There you
Bam.
go.
For me, I think the suicide hotlines it's an anonymous hotline that really is it's a valued resource, and I think there's like some stigmas of like, I'm not gonna call this line, like call the line and talk, like literally, like reach out to your local counselor. I mean, if we're in school, there's always a resource. And so here's what happens. And I would encourage students to do this. You've got to be willing to really want, like the resources. I'll get this sometimes, Aaron, from people like, I don't have anybody. And I'm like, that's not probably truthful. You have somebody, but the person, I mean, truthfully, everyone probably, maybe the 1.99.999, there's that 1%, okay. But for the most of us, we like to say we don't have anybody, but the truth of the matter is, what I've seen with being in front of tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, a million students in the last 4 years of my life, is that we always have these people, but we don't really necessarily want to use them because they may really hold us accountable. They may really want to help us, and you may have to really face your junk. And so I just encourage that person, if it's a counselor, if it's a teacher, if it's a friend, if it's a social worker, there are a plethora of resources, the suicide hotline. I mean, there are so many things out there for you. Just have got to be willing to make yourself do it and punch that fear in the face. That's really what it is. You have to be really ready to have that fear and to face it head on, and knowing once you talk about it, it's not nearly as bad as what you thought it was going to be. And so that's what I would really say to that, is that yes, there's those few exceptions, but for the most part, we don't want to talk about it with certain people because we're looking for somebody to give us the advice and to give us the instructions that we really want to hear, not necessarily what we need to hear. And that's just real. I'm just raw with it, and that's just I'll be in front of 1,000 students, and we're all raising hands. I ask all these questions, and we raise hands, and I'll say, how many of you feel like you don't have anybody? And you'll see probably 200 hands go up. And I would then say what I just said to you, and how many of you really don't? And then there'll be like one hand, because everybody has that person. They just don't want to use them because they're going to have to really be held accountable and have to face their stuff. And so that's what I would just say to that. Is face your stuff, guys. It's going to be okay. We're better together. So
that's good. That's good. All right. Well, we thank you for joining us today. Such a good word, very encouraging. So people have asked if we can share this video. I'm going to share it, among our school. But do you have any rules as to not post it on our YouTube channel or anything like that?
No, man. Okay. I would just ask, if you could, would you Google Drive or send it back to Natalie or to us? I would love, because I couldn't record it, but I would love if you could send this also back, or that would be great. We'd love to have it too.
Okay.
I also know where we have the video series. The link should be getting sent to you hopefully by today. That's supposed to happen. So you'll be getting the video. We have those video, all that. Honestly, to me, content is for the world, and I don't care who you share it with. Like, okay, this is life. This is more than just life. This is share this stuff, right? Like, that's my heart behind all of it. So thank you.
Right. Well, thank you so much, and have a good day.
All righty, bye.
All right, bye. All right, Emperors, that was it. So hopefully you were motivated today and got some good advice. And I thank you for your time. Thank you for joining in. And I will be posting this. I'm going to send out a link on email. So if you know someone who should have listened, share that link, and that way they can listen into and have that resource. So have a good day, Impers. Bye.